Greetings and welcome, everyone. It's All You Can Geek Moviecast, episode 480. I'm one of your hosts, Jim Gass, joined by Mike Sneedy,
What's up?
Corey Feinsod,
Yo.
and Tony Korkanakis.
Hello.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, listeners. Welcome, viewers. We have arrived at our top 5 of the decade. So this is going to be 5 through 1 or 1 through 5, however you want to put that in whatever order in your head. We're here. This is our best movies of the decade.
Lock it in.
Yep, locking it in
Best
for
5.
a decade.
Not best. I wouldn't say best, but just like
Our
our
favorites.
As I've said before we started this podcast, you're like
subjective.
Yeah, you're like splitting hairs about where any of these movies really could fall on anybody's lists. I mean, it's like it's your own opinions, and again, if we anger people about leaving something off our list, sorry, but we like the movies we like. This is our opinions yet again. We hope you enjoy the episode, and it's gonna be maybe a couple overlap things. Mike's gonna have some weird stuff, and no, you probably have some stable. You already did your stuff. Like this is your top list. I'm expecting some good stuff here. Not that your stuff's not good. Sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant from this.
Getting a little personal now, Jim.
That's not what I meant from this. He watches the artsy stuff. I don't watch the artsy stuff. I'm just saying it's he likes the artsy stuff.
Not really.
All right,
You like
you
a
did.
artsy thing.
Yeah,
Like-
it's true.
I really just watch way less than.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're far less of a
He's
fool.
more selective.
So, okay, guys, let's get into this because this is 5 through 1. So again, we're going to recap all of them at the end of this, our top 10 in order at the end of this episode, so you understand what we have here. And again, there will be some spoilers maybe mentioned here, so we're sorry if there are. We'll try, obviously we don't go out of our way to spoil something for people, but if it happens, it happens. It's our of the decade, and these movies have been out. A lot of them have been out for mine. One of them has been 10 years. So sorry if you haven't seen it yet. I'm sure you've heard about it. So number 5 for me, I'm going to kick the list off. I have the order written down from last time. We're going to follow the same order, so it's cohesive. Number 5, John Wick. So appeared on the list last week for Tony, and not anybody else's list yet. So I guess I was the first one besides to crack the list here. I finished my list up with The Raid last week, and I really felt like either one of these could have been 5. And I went with John Wick because I'm like, Keanu Reeves is so hot right now. Like, it's just like I just like really enjoy seeing it, and he's such a good dude. And I'm just like, I love watching whatever he's in. And even if I didn't like John Wick 3 for like the story myself, I thought it was the weaker stuff of them, and I still enjoyed the hell out of that movie. And this series, it was such a shock to show up the way it did. I did not expect it to be good at all, and it's just like it's an amazing actions movie that it deserves to be on the list. It really does. For people who like action movies, it should be. That's why I made it.
I'd say it's one of the few of the decade that's actually like, reminiscent of the 90s or early 00s, where it's just
That's what I mean. Like Taken was I don't know when the first one came out, but it was
early 00s, I think.
Yeah, and that's why
2006.
and I wouldn't put any of the other ones anywhere near my list because that one just those sequels I thought failed. Horribly.
Everyone was just like the worst in the last.
Yeah. But like this movie's like even like I'm talking about John Wick 3 is like not in my opinion a great story, but it's still better than most action movies you've seen. I mean, it's fantastic. The action is great. You can't, and I love Mark Dacascos. Big fan of him. Like love his stuff.
Only
So
strong.
yep, love his work. And also don't forget Double Dragon. So, all right.
Please forget.
Yes, always forget
That's what
Double
he's
Dragon.
thinking.
Always forget it. So that's my number 5. Mike, number 5 for you.
My number 5 is gonna be Civil War.
Ooh,
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
It's
I
my
did not expect that to be on your list.
Yeah. So talk about
yeah.
it.
It's my I think it's my top MCU movie.
Really? I could have sworn I remember you just trashing that one.
I trashed the villain that didn't need to be there.
Oh, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
Like, okay.
That's what-
And I voted against it a little into things, but that's beside the point. um, but to me, this was like the last, in my opinion, the last like sort of MCU movie that was about like humanity and like morals of heroes, other than everything else just became a.
Well, it was cosmic after that on a purpose. And
Yeah,
the story went
but it was
universal.
Yeah, no, I mean there was magical MacGuffins after that, but to me this one really was interesting because this was a good adaptation of well, one of the more interesting Marvel storylines in the last like 20 years in Civil War, and it was just and it brought Spider-Man in, so it had all of the Avengers people I cared about, which was Captain America and Iron Man, and then it had Spider-Man brought in, and it brought them, and there was like an ideological
And Black Panther.
Yes,
Gotta include him. Can't be
Right.
I forgot he was in here too, honestly, but because it was really about Spider-Man, even though he was not in it too long. It was really about his entrance into the MCU there.
Yeah, that was a big draw for a lot of people to see what that would be like. Yeah.
And so we had all these characters put together. You sidelined the annoyingly powerful characters a bit. They weren't there, and it was just a good sort of examination of the characters and their motivations, and it had that great airport scene, which was probably my favorite MCU action scene.
It was like it was an Avengers 2.5. It was a Captain America movie that felt like an Avengers movie.
It's more Avengers than Ultron.
Yes, yeah, I'd say so. It just, like Mike said, though, it did cut out those overpowered heroes. They got them out of there, and it was like, it was humanity. Right, it was down to earth, like as down to earth as Marvel stuff can be. But
no, and then it was an examination of like, that whole freedom versus safety debate, and it made you think of, I think, kind of about like what like these heroes would have to consider a little more than what we get afterwards, in my opinion, where it's just like get the magical things.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it's a very good movie. I know I mean I wrote down a whole bunch of Marvel stuff when I first started these lists. It ultimately crossed that one off.
So to me, it was kind of like my peak interest in it.
Okay. All right. Next up is Tony.
Let's see. My number 5 was Raid Redemption. And just how you talked about it last week. I mean, and just what you were saying, John Wick is, martial arts movies, are definitely a lot more rare than they used to be, obviously, especially from like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. And Raid just came out of nowhere and, just surprised, I would say, everybody, because, I mean, it did pretty well internationally, which is just, hard to do these days, especially. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last foreign film, especially martial arts that, got recognized, and to the point where like those the actors rather, guest starred in so many other series just as like little like nods and cameos and stuff like that.
And people knew who they were too. It's
right.
Like, all these guys from the Raid.
Yeah, it's like the Raid guys. Yeah, stuff like that. But the story, it's like just simple, but enough to like draw you in and keep your tension going, because that's what it is. It's a SWAT raid gone bad. Where the tables get turned on them, and it's about a fight for survival. So the story is just serviceable enough to make you interested, not like totally hokey, boring, or anything like that. But the choreography, the fight sequences, the brutality of it, because like I don't know, one of the things for me with martial arts is like when you watch it, the suspension of disbelief there is like he didn't really punch that guy in the face, but everything in this feels like they actually do, and they really sell it to you on that. So. It's just a great series. Really wish we got more of it, but totally understand that they had to move on to bigger and better things. So
yeah, cool. Corey,
my number 5 is Blade Runner 2049.
Ooh, I still haven't seen this.
Show up.
I still haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, no, it was my top movie 2 years ago or whatever, and this movie blew me away. Like, no, definitely one that I was like kind of curious about, like how they're gonna really make a sequel to Blade Runner and make it good. And I didn't actually really like Blade Runner that much. Like I thought Blade Runner was
very dry, very slow. Yeah,
was much. Yeah, it's not what I was looking for when I first watched it, and it kind of soured my taste to that world a little bit. But going back to it here and seeing how they revitalize it and make it modern even though it's supposed to be like now, like it's taking place now, right? They do a great job. And they bring back characters from the other one that it makes sense and everything kind of fits together, and it's just a beautiful movie too. Like visually, it's really awesome, and it kind of has that, like the question of humanity as well. Like, what is, like, am I human, or what does it mean to be human, and that kind of thing. So there's like those things in there that are interesting concepts.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the only reason I have yet to watch this movie is because you keep saying how visually impressive this movie is, like nonstop. Like, since you've talked about this movie since day one, all you said that. And so I have in my living room one of the best TVs. Like, I love my OLED. It's fantastic. And so I have to find the time to watch it on that. Like, right. I have an opportunity to watch it other spots. I'm like, I'm not watching this right now. I want to watch it. And I just haven't done that yet. And so that's really why. Because I want to see this movie. It seems like it's like right up my alley.
Yeah.
But
me too, but I haven't seen the first one.
You don't need to see the first one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you don't need to. Like, there would be things that would be like,
I don't remember the first one. I don't remember the first one.
You don't need to watch the first one. Although, I'm sure if you do, it's not going to be a bad thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would say you don't need to.
It's like going to see a sequel for something that you.
Is it like it's like The Witcher 3?
Yes. I would say that's what I've heard from this. Like, honestly, I have not seen. I don't remember the first movie because I haven't seen it in years. I don't remember like hardly any of that movie at all because it was also so, like Corey said, it was pretty boring. Like, it was a pretty slow movie for me, and I'm
pretty sure it only got a cult hit once like the director's cut came out or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and that was the longer version of it. So I'm like, I don't want to see this.
Long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but cool. All right. Let me go back to my list here. Number 4. Oh, number 4 is Inception.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I said last week when Corey had this on his list, we could talk about the ending till today. Like, still argue about what we took from that movie, and I love how he still left it out. Like, no answers came afterwards about what he really intended there. He left it open ended for people to discuss how they took that ending and how they saw it. And it did so many cool things that were new, like the way the dream within a dream, the diving in. I mean, so many things referenced that. I think there was a South Park episode. There is a South Park episode based on that. I think for the elections or something like that, if I remember right. Like, I mean, when you inspire something like that, you obviously made your mark for the decade. And it's not even just a decade, but that movie's going to be around, in conversations about its styling and stuff like that for a long time. Love or hate Leonardo DiCaprio, the guy's a fantastic actor. He really is. Like, he is great, and he was very good in this movie. And
the acting was fantastic in this.
Yeah, and that's why, we didn't mention that last week, and I just like wanted to mention like how good this cast was in this movie. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know what happened with Dark Knight Rises, but
I don't know either, because I mean, this was fantastic directing. And
it's like they just gave it all to this one. It's like,
I think he was just burnt out. Yeah, he just burnt out. So that's my number 4. Mike, number 4.
My number 4, and this might be controversial, is The Force Awakens.
Ooh. I don't think it's controversial.
I don't think it's controversial. Very shortly.
well, to those who feel like this was, sort of like an unoriginal like movie, it might be. But to me, this was like the event of like the century, but pretty much. You get like this franchise coming back with a sequel, literally like 40 years in the making, and it was just everyone was talking about it right there, and it brought back one of my favorite characters who I didn't think I would ever see again in Han Solo, and it alluded to another one, but it was just interesting, and it was just a big cinematic experience. We got all the callbacks, just a revitalization of the cinematic Star Wars universe. I wish it happened now, like maybe 15 years earlier, and went a little differently overall. But at the time, this was still exciting, even by the end when you realize that you weren't getting that reunion that should have happened with the core 3.
Yeah, and we didn't know that at that point in time.
I mean, we did by the end of that movie, though.
Sure, we didn't know that. Yeah, I know, but we didn't know that they were never going to be on screen together like that. I mean, until that movie. But I mean, that movie, like you said, was such a success, like just such an successful reboot. I mean, it's better than any prequel movies. People hate the fact that it's a New Hope reboot, essentially a rehash, not a reboot, it's a New Hope rehash. But it successfully revitalized Star Wars
And I do
until,
think
until they
that
drove it back into the ground. But
I mean, I do think that's a little bit of an oversimplification too. We definitely there's a lot more.
Similar ground was tread on that movie, but like the thing, I think, I mean, it did what it was supposed to do, and obviously with the actors bringing them back, you couldn't do like the younger stories because of how old they were, so they had to kind of push it out that far. But for me, still, I'm not the poo-poo on your number, 4 or anything. Are we on 4? Yeah. Just to me, like I'm disappointed that we didn't get the stories that I was hoping for. But
yeah, I was going to pick it back off of this, but Tony, you want to add to that at all or no?
No, I mean, look, I think you guys think the Star Wars movies are better than they are in actuality. I think there's like one really good one and a bunch of good ones, and they're all bad. The rest are just bad.
So what I love is the characters. I just love that the stories you can draw from this, and I'll get into that in just a second. Go on.
Yeah, no, but I don't know. It was just it had the action. To me, this one more than maybe the next two, the space faring like battles seemed to matter more. You were introduced to new characters, and also they were directly related in an interesting way still to the older characters. Not all of them landed for me, obviously. I still don't really understand what Finn's purpose was, but
I just first after Rey, basically.
I guess. Yeah. But it was just great to see this world come back in a way that was big and interesting, and it was mostly just like a cinematic event, really. Like that's why.
No, you can't deny that.
That's because I did have to consider this one. It didn't make my list, spoiler alert, but it's one of those things where like it was an event, and I think the event was just bigger than the movie itself, and I don't think that's a knock on it, but it's just I remember going everywhere and it was Star Wars this, Star Wars that. Like I remember going to the grocery market, picking up a bag of apples, and it had like Star Wars brand packaging. I was like, what the
to this day,
fuck is this?
You go into Home Depot and you walk past the fridges, and there's like a Star Wars advertisement on the fridge face. I'm like, what does this have to do with selling me a fridge?
Yeah, like just this past holiday season, they had like Star Wars droid themed Instant Pots. I'm just like, really? I was like, who wants that? And then I was like, well, I kind of want that, but I didn't get it. But it's just
I mean, if we want to just continue this real quick, this is my number 3. And so I don't want to, go back to it in a few minutes here. So I will say that as I look back on this movie, I loved this reboot. I've watched this one multiple times. I love the new characters they brought in. If I just exclude out how it finishes, it's not that I hated the way the last movie finished. It's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. It's just that this was a great movie in my opinion. I really enjoyed this movie, and obviously the way that it impacted the decade. Star Wars is back. Disney bought it. It was a huge purchase. Like holy shit, they spent at that point a lot of money getting it all back. Hand over fist. But this was something that I couldn't wait to see my character. Now, that being said, it's third on my list and not number 1. Because of how it finished. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I'm sorry, but the treatment that I have of my characters has gotten me to go back now to start rereading the Legends books. I'm listening to the way that I wanted my Luke Skywalker to finish his journey. Like that's where I get frustrated with this whole saga, and that's what I meant to talk about.
I mean, I still said before, and I'll say it again. Big missed opportunity to have them all really on screen again. That's the biggest, I guess, sin of this movie because it made it, like, I guess, plot-wise kind of illogical to do that by the end of it. But it's still, at that time, there was, like, hope for, like, this trilogy. And, like, it was, like, you were interested in, again.
There's mysteries.
You might fight me on this, but, trying to figure out why Rey was special was a thing because of this movie. Like, well,
Snoke was. I wanted to know who Snoke was. I thought that was interesting to me, and I really wanted to know I want to know who he was. Like, I was like, what is he out there for and represent? Now, ultimately, I don't like what we got as the answer for that. But we also have a consolidated movie in the last movie, so it doesn't take anything away from this movie itself. If you could watch this movie on its own, it's
at the time it started a lot of like hope for new Star Wars stuff. I thought
a new hope.
Mm-hmm.
The newest hope.
And that's why it's number 3 on my list, because it doesn't deserve to be higher, but I thought it needed to be in my top 5, and I thought it's still better than John Wick and Inception, in my opinion, just because I'm a big Star Wars fan. So that's where it ended up. And, you know, my top two are pretty well set. I can't wait to talk about those. I'll be off. You guys can talk now for a while because now I've just done my 2 picks in a row here. Tony, what was your number 4?
Let's see. My number 4 was Your Name, which is the Japanese animation film from like 2016, I think, something like that. I wanted to represent at least one traditional animation movie, and I think this is pretty much it. And you know, I think Corey, you had watched this too, right?
You might see it on my list.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I just from the animation alone, like I would recommend anybody that is a fan of 2D animation to watch this.
His new one's in theaters.
I saw that over the weekend. I'll talk about it next.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's just a beautifully drawn animated film. And to like a side note, I wish Disney would throw that kind of budget towards a hand-drawn 2D animation movie, you know, on that level. I mean, do it with Mickey, any of their IPs, you know, but just the animation alone is awesome. But the soundtrack, the story, the characters, like everything just comes together, and it's this interesting blend of like modern, you know, at its core, it's a modern, light, romantic comedy kind of. But then, you know, it gets into this like Freaky Friday situation with a twist. And then you just get into like some spiritualism and maybe shamanism or mysticism, whatever you want to call it. And it's just like this, you know, story about fate and stuff like that. And it's just one of those really impactful movies that, you know, I sat there after, you know, the credits roll and was just like, damn, I had to think about it. I reached out to people that also saw it, just like, because I needed to talk about it. And it just, you know, left this profound impact on me. And obviously, a fan of the director and writer and stuff like that. So
that's my number 3, by the way.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah, Your Name is my number 3. We'll do a little Jim here.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
And combine this because I had that on my list in my top 10, and then I watched it again like a couple weeks before we did this, and I was like, yeah, this is top 5. And then I was looking at my top 5. I was like, no, this is higher than that. This is higher than that. It's like, well, there it lands here. Yep. And yeah, just like you're saying, it's got some really great characters. You really do care for the characters in this film, and the Freaky Friday aspect of it is where the 2 main characters are switching places with each other, and like, oh, I've seen this before, but then they throw in that little twist, and it's like, oh wow, this is pretty neat. It's not just your normal, oh, these guys are gonna switch places and then they'll meet up and fall in love and whatever, blah blah blah. There's like a lot more to it. Like you're saying, there's that spiritual aspect to it all, and again, it's Blade Runner style. It's just a beautiful film to watch and look at, and it does hit you right at, like it almost ends too soon a little bit. Like you want to get to go on. Yeah. And I think that's also a good sign of a film, like kind of like Inception. You're like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah, I need it now. Like, what are you doing? It's like, and then they kind of do that here, where it's like, oh, really? That's you're gonna stop it here and just leave the rest up to the imagination, I suppose, and you kind of fill in the ending for yourself. But yeah, this movie, like everything you said, Tony, is just a fantastic film, and I don't know if there is a better, just a better anime motion picture that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, it's up there, and just speaking of the new one, I saw that, and it's up there. I don't think it's as good, but it's still one of those things that like is just impactful and just it makes you feel something, and it's really hard. I mean, I think all my top 10 have made me feel something, but like when we're getting to the top 5, I think it's like it really, like, I don't know, resonated me on some aspects.
And it makes you kind of believe like in people, and
yeah, it does. Yeah, fate,
like,
just
exactly, and like
good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool. I can do my number 4 also.
Yes, you're up for number 4.
And I'll be quick because my number 4 is John Wick.
Oh, you can. I mean, you can talk about it again. We talked.
No, I mean, we've said a lot about John Wick already.
Say your piece, man.
I just wanted to add to what we've already said, is just the fact that this was a come out of nowhere film. Like nobody really expected anything of it. It's like, oh, a quick action movie, low budget. And I think that all worked towards its advantage, where they could just kind of be free with everything. But like Keanu Reeves is such a committed actor to his craft that what he did to make this character more than what was just on the page. I feel like if it was anybody else, this would not have succeeded. And so like the just the whole practical effects of everything and how much he is in it and not a stunt guy and not somebody posing as him and cuts and cuts and cuts. It's like you stayed on the action, you were watching everything. It wasn't shaky cam, and you got to see
I
him.
love that. I love that aspect.
John
It
Wick.
wasn't shaky cam. I love that fact.
No, I mean you got to see him do it, like, and that was awesome, and it just keeps going with the second one.
And the first one is so good with that mystery of what the hell this is, what's going on exactly. I love that. As we mentioned last week. So.
Yeah, and the world building there is some of the best.
Mike, did you see this movie? Okay, so 3 of us have now recommended this movie of the decade. I think you have to. I think you would really enjoy this movie. I really do.
It's not long either.
I mean,
No, it's not long. It's an action movie. It's a lot of gunplay, violence, but it's got a great story.
You're a dog person. You can get behind them.
Yeah, you can get behind it. Yeah.
That's why I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I know. You have to get past that part. It's it's like Benji.
So yeah, that's number 4, and then obviously my number 3 was Your Name.
Yeah. All right. My number 3 was obviously Force Awakens. So Mike, what was your number 3?
My number 3 is the Lego Movie, the original.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Master Builder.
This was a big surprise to me. I just saw it. I think I went with my brother to see this one, and
I thought we went and saw this.
I'm not sure.
He may have been there. He actually
you and me. Well, I saw it with you, Jim.
Yeah, no, I thought maybe your brother was there. I remember your brother going to one of these.
I don't know exactly, but it was a big surprise to me. But it was interesting animation. Almost looked like it was actually stop motion, even though it wasn't. And like everyone's played with Legos, everyone knows Legos, and it's just taking this. It's not quite like Toy Story, but like adjacent an idea kind of, and then it became this crazy crossover too, because you have all these like licensed characters in Lego form in there as well.
Yeah.
And you get Chris Pratt, like, who blew up like between this and obviously Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World. They were all like pretty close together.
They were all very close, yeah. He had a great year. He had a great run right there.
He had a great decade.
Yeah.
And it was funny. It wasn't like, it was good for like kids and adults, I think. And it was even like sort of, emotional even at the end too, with a pretty interesting cameo, even though you heard his voice the whole movie as well with Will Ferrell. So, I don't know, it just came out of nowhere, and it had like actual action as well, even in Lego form, but an addictive song, the soundtrack that like everyone will continue to sing now.
You're missing the everything was awesome. Like you just said that to start.
I know, I'm not.
You just said that to start.
I'm not saying it on purpose because everyone's gonna have it in their head for the rest of the time. But
it's not as bad as the second movie. This song's gonna get stuck in your head. That was a song legitimately written like that. So,
I thought the other songs in movie 2 were better than the actual. Like Well, no, I mean, of the second movie songs, I thought the other songs were better than the actual song. This song is gonna get stuck inside your head.
Yeah,
everything is also the best.
I don't really remember that one as much, honestly.
I've heard it.
No, I mean,
it's 7-year-old. I've heard it many times.
Oh God.
So.
But just pretty much every aspect, it was surprising and good, and it was just a unique movie that stands out to me when I look back on this decade.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I definitely agree with you there. It's just like one of the things that, honestly, I could probably swap it out with Toy Story 3. If I really felt about it one day or watched it, but yeah, like it was one of those things that, I mean, I love Lego, and I think it's one of those like timeless classic toys that has persisted over generations now. That it's one of those perfect things that kids can enjoy it.
Full of them.
Yeah, exactly. Kids can enjoy it, but adults can enjoy it as well. And I think the movie really hit on that too, where like, yeah, at its base, it's a kids movie. Hero's arc, adventure, whatever you can call it. But the theme, the underlying theme at the end of it, that's for adults, and it's just like, yeah, okay, like toys are meant to be played with, and stuff like that. So, I totally with you. The movie was just really awesome, delightful, and I'm hoping we get a third movie that's closer to.
I love that they also everything that's built can be built in real life too.
Yeah, exactly. Yep,
it's possible.
They just didn't make up shit. It's just like we can actually make this out of Lego.
Yeah. It was pretty cool with that. So, yep. All right. Number 3 for Tony.
So this one is a little difficult, but
is flip flopping here?
No. I think I'm gonna cheat because I think it's gonna be Avengers: Infinity War / Endgame.
Oh, we all cheat with those.
Yeah. I know. That's why I was like, I'm okay with saying it because like last week I had to put one down. I was like, if like somebody held a gun to my like head, like this is the one I would say. Where I think Endgame just was like, how it ended,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
it was the continuation of it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But when I think about it, when those two movies really do go together.
It's almost like, one movie, yeah.
Right, it is. It's kind of like Kill Bill 1, Kill Bill 2.
Originally supposed to be one movie, and they're like, wait, we got to do 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember that was one of the stipulations of the bet with Jim.
Yeah.
Jim and myself.
Which, yeah, yep.
But yeah, just when I think about it, how the decade started in 2012 with Avengers 1, which is also a fantastic movie, and for the sake of variety, I didn't include it here, but I could take a page of Corey and include it. But when you think about how Avengers came out at the beginning of the decade, and it's just like getting 5 characters on screen was like mind-blowing. Like, how are they gonna juggle all these like 5 characters and not just nobodies, like they're superstars at this point.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, et cetera. And it's like to come to Infinity War and Endgame, where you have dozens of characters at this point, and to make a cohesive movie in a narrative and a story that makes like not only like makes sense but is rewarding and fulfilling. And to me, outside of a couple parts, like it was one of those things that rewarded the diehard fans that have seen every movie, but it wasn't an absolute requirement that you needed to. So it just really, paid off on all the strings that they left out, including, my personal favorite scene that I had wanted since, they had continued with Age of Ultron, where, Captain America picks up Thor's hammer. I mean, that is an iconic moment in the comics, and that's an iconic moment in, the movie, I would say,
Right.
Where he, picks it up and stuff like that. And then just the callbacks to, fun nostalgia where, it's not like a wink, wink, look at the camera, like, what's your last name? Skywalker. It's like, okay. Or it's just like they throw the little things in there. So if you had seen him, you're rewarded for knowing that, but it's even without it, it's like it makes sense and stuff like that. So Avengers is, the 2 movies that really made sense and was like the culmination of the cinematic universe for me, and where even if they weren't continuing the movies, like I would just be 100% satisfied with like that 10 years, 11 years, whatever it was that we got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Cool. Gonna continue with Marvel here for my number 2. This is actually my highest rated MCU movie. So it's Winter Soldier. All
right, it's my number 2 too, so I'll talk about it.
Oh, great, perfect. Winter Soldier. I'll write that down for you as well.
Would I have it at 6? No, 7. Yeah.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
6. Yep. No, yours was yours was 6. Yeah, we're 6. It made all of our lists. This was
the
my
only
number
one that's going. Maybe.
Probably not. Maybe. No, there's one that's gonna make all. No. Yeah. No, Corey. I think we're gonna overlap with one. So yeah, my crap. All right. My number 1's gonna go with your number 2. I think. No. All right. Whatever. We'll see. Winter Soldier was fantastic. Like the twist, the elevator sequence to this day is one of the best sequences I've ever seen in any Marvel movie out there, any movie of the decade.
I was gonna say any like action movie.
Yeah, we're going with action movies again. It was just such a great sequence, and then like the whole like what we have learned of like how big Amazing Shield is, like I don't know if amazing is the word, but in the comic books, and how big and like security based this company is, and the fact that in this movie universe
organization
had infiltrated by Hydra for this entire time was just such a crazy twist. It was unbelievable. And then like the story itself with him trying to reconnect with Bucky after like the way that first movie ended, which was the first movie wasn't excellent at all. It was solid.
It was solid. It's like surprisingly.
It was what it was.
Right.
They
I
were.
I definitely didn't have high expectations for this sequel because of that one, and
No.
this was just holy shit. This was incredible. This movie, I mean, we could talk about this movie forever. It was so we had a spoiler cast on this, which was pretty long based on this movie. Imagine I mean, because you can break it down as much as you can break down like Infinity War. I mean, it was like the content there was so good. The cinematography was excellent. The fight sequences were amazing. Sorry, yeah, and then like just the scenery. I mean, everything was great. I love that twist though. And then, yeah, I mean, you had some side characters in this. It wasn't like Civil War where you had these other superheroes in it. You had Scarlett Johansson's, Black Widow, but and you had Nick Fury. Right? Yeah,
Falcon.
And Falcon. Falcon was in this, right? This is where we got Falcon.
On the left.
Yes, and I had that sequence. I mean, to this, I go to DC like every year as an annual trip, and I make that a picture. I have, since this movie came out, I think I have a picture on my Facebook page every single year since this movie came out of On Your Left from that same shot. Yeah. I do it every year. I'm going to do it again just so you all know. In May this year, I'm going to do it again. Mm-hmm. I just love that scene, and they brought it back in Endgame, which was great. But because it's one of the best lines. So I just love this movie. Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. This is my favorite standalone Marvel movie by far. I think it's the best individual one too, without having seen the others. Because I think you could make by even if you hadn't seen Captain America 1 or Avengers. But to me, this is the perfect encapsulation where, again, I talked about it, but I'll reiterate if people hadn't listened to the older podcasts. But this movie made me really respect Captain America as a character, because before it was just like this hokey World War II propaganda relic. It's like, oh yeah, look, Captain America's punching Hitler in the face on the cover of this comic book. Okay, cool. Like, I get it. Like, it was what it was. Needed to lift spirits back in the day. I totally get it. But like in the modern era, like, what does Captain America have to offer me now? And stuff like that. But and then Captain America 1 came out in Avengers. It's like, okay, like he's the Star-Spangled Hero, whatever. I get it.
Boy Scout. Yep, Boy Scout.
But this, I mean, from the very beginning, really takes that like man displaced out of time, because from the very beginning, he's just working out. He meets up with Black Widow, and then he goes to the old person's home, and he meets up with Peggy, and there's this awesome emotional thing, because you're happy because he gets reunited with his first and only love, with Peggy. Only to find out that she has like dementia, and it's just like it's almost heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking because that was like his one thing from his old life that was still there, until we find the Winter Soldier, who was an awesome villain, like Terminator style, like top tier assassin. He doesn't have superpowers or whatever. He's not going to fly and stuff like that, but like he is just a trained killer, and he knows how to take out his target. And anytime he's on the screen, like shit happens. From nearly killing Nick Fury to capturing them, to taking out the traitor, I forget his name, the bald guy, where he just like flew him out of the, like just threw him out onto the highway and stuff like that. But Winter Soldier arrives, and the face comes off. I mean, first of all, awesome cinematography with the the martial arts choreography, the elevator scene. But even like the elevator sequence, you talked about it, and I agree 100%. But even when he's fighting Bucky, like the one-on-one with like the knife and stuff like that, and like it goes to the truck or whatever, and you just feel that the grittiness and stuff. But yeah, just an awesome movie, awesome twist. Was one of those things where it's like, wow, like Captain America can actually be a deep character. So just it made me shoot up that, and then Chris Evans especially just does a fantastic job of portraying him. Perfect casting.
Yeah, I mean, he was right on there. So I mean, this was done by the Russos, and this gave the Russos
first one.
Yeah, this got them obviously on the massive map for Marvel and what they could do. Yeah. All right, Mike, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Days of Future Past. For me, this sort of is like
ended your. I got you.
This is the end. This is the end game of the X-Men universe.
It gave you closure.
Yeah, it was. Because this started in like the year 2000, pretty much, with the first X-Men movie, and this is, in my eyes, not even my eyes. It's kind of like the dawn of the modern Marvel, or not just superhero movie, and they obviously had ups and downs since then, but this tried to bring it all together in a way that would make somewhat of sense, and it did a pretty good job for the old and the new, and we got a nice sort of I mean, this was teased actually at the end of the Wolverine, I think, when that great cameo that
Surprise cameo.
no one saw coming in that movie. And so we got this movie here. We got, obviously it's Wolverine centric, like most of these movies are, but that's fine with me. And we get an alternate future, we get a past, we get the merging of these storylines, and we get a kind of a happy ending, although got to figure out how that timeline goes. But we get the ending that we kind of wanted, and a big surprise. We didn't think at that very end that all those people would be back just for that final scene, because we had flat out lying like directors and stuff saying that, oh no, they're not involved. So to me, like that was just very satisfying, and it was a lot, and and it tapped into what makes X-Men, I think, more interesting than typical superhero fare, because it's still about, prejudices and safety again versus freedom, that same debate, and you had all of that going back, full circle with the time travel, and it just worked, and it was so surprising because at that point you didn't have like a big ensemble X-Men thing work in a while. Yeah. So it was a great way to like sort of close out the X-Men thing. You got even Halle Berry coming back.
Oh yeah, well. That was shocking. I was really shocked they got her back for that. So.
Yeah. So you had all the people come back, and it was just impactful to see these people like 20 years later almost come back and reprise their roles one last time to sort of close it out.
I sharing a story about the X-Men on this just side story here. I really enjoyed X-Men 2 so much, X2. I did enjoy seeing them in this movie. Obviously we both have different explanations as to what happened and why they were there, but kind of thing. I think I stated it wasn't like writing reality or anything like that, but I do think this was a really good movie, and if you just stop here and don't look ahead, it's a great way to end it. It really is.
Well, there's an epilogue too, but might talk about that at some point.
So I don't know. I mean, I just know that Apocalypse was god awful, and at some point I'll see the Phoenix when it's
no.
Yeah, no.
I have to.
So it's for me. This was.
I'm going to see the Phoenix one on a bad bet. Then I'm sure it's going to happen. Somebody's going to make us. That's going to be a movie we're all going to throw around. I'll make you rewatch it again.
I wouldn't even wish that on my worst enemy.
I'm going to make you rewatch it again. You lose a bet to me. How about that? All right. Corey, what was your number 2?
My number 2 was Arrival. Arrival is the Amy Adams. Yeah, it's an alien.
And Hawkeye, yeah.
And Hawkeye. And it's in a way it's similar to Your Name in that like it's about these characters. It's about mostly Amy Adams' character, I guess, and her like. Basically, she has all these, like throughout the movie, she's having all these flashbacks, and she's I guess she's like like a linguist or something, like where she's brought in to try to translate or figure out what this alien language is that these alien ships come in and they're trying to communicate. So she's brought in to try to help with that. Meanwhile, she's having all these flashbacks, and which are you're like, curious to what's going on there, and then like when she finally does figure things out, that moment is just one of the most amazing moments I've seen in like cinema in a long time, and just how that all plays into the flashbacks and how the movie's moving, and just again that feeling of we as a people can be better and be good, and what we can do to improve as humans. I think that was really impactful for me, and it was probably, other than obviously my number 1, after watching, it was like the most like staggered or whatever you might say, like after watching, like I was like, what did I just watch? What is going on now? And just it was really, really cool, and just the fact that it made me think about it a lot afterwards. Really is the reason it's on here where it is, because nice. Even now I'm just like, wow, this movie is so wow. Just comes together so well.
So Wow. All right, then we are not going to have an overlap here. I can't tie this in for my number one. Oh, I can go now after you here, but I really expected that my number one was going to be your number two because I knew your number one wasn't going to be my number one. But we'll see. As confusing as that is, but yeah. So we're down to our number ones. Okay, we've got
number one of the decade, guys.
We're going through the list here. This is our number one movies of the decade. Here we go. Number one for me. It's a movie that I probably joked about and made fun of before it came out, and it is easily the best Spider-Man movie that I have ever seen, and it deserves to be. And I don't know if I'm being more recent biased about it or if I'm a big Spider-Man fan, but I don't give a fuck. It's the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. Into the Spider-Verse is my movie of the decade. It is the best form of Spider-Man.
All right, Jim, spoiler alert. My number one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
We tied! I really thought you were going to go with, I thought you were going to go with the recent thing you just saw. The
Oh, Parasite?
Parasite. I thought you were going with Parasite. You threw me off when you were talking about you're thinking about it like crazy in The Arrival, and I was like, oh shit, he went like Parasite, I think, on this one. No, so yeah, this movie, again, talking about the way it looks is awesome. Once you realize you're watching an animated movie in the style of a comic book, the music mixed in with it fantastically. I mean, and then you get your Spider-Man. You get Peter Parker. You get an older Peter Parker.
Whatever Spider-Man is your Spider-Man, you're getting him.
You get the new noir Spider-Man, who I thought was hilarious. Nick Cage's greatest role.
For me, I'm going to jump in a little bit too, because again, this is my number one of the decade.
Go ahead.
And that is solely because I think I was not this movie blew me away more than any movie I've seen in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
After watching this movie, I don't think I've ever felt more in awe or shock and like satisfied. Every feeling of that was a fantastic film ran through my veins, and I was like, this is what it means.
I'm glad I watched this.
Yeah,
this is what it means to watch, go to the cinema and watch a movie. This embodies that for me, and I got caught up in the emotions and just him running off that skyscraper and
jumped off at the end
jumping on that sequence, just I had chills. It was it was just
what's
amazing.
funny is because I don't know much about the Miles Morales character myself. I don't know much about him. I don't follow him in the comic books. So getting his aspect of the story really makes you he's deserving of the Spider-Man mantle. He is he's a character can take up that. He's got that same kind of vibe of an early young Peter Parker, obviously. And I just love that, that triumphant part, jumping off the building and coming through when he, realization of what he has to do. It's awesome. And even balancing the balancing act and stuff that he has to do with his personal life. And we had some funny sequences in this movie. I love the comedy mixed into it. And so because it's pretty serious. I mean, his uncle gets killed in front of him and by the Kingpin, who was the only sore part with how he looked, not how he acted. I thought he was a great version of the Kingpin, just looked weird. He just shot the guy on the rooftop, and that was just awesome.
I mean, but I mean, even before that point, honestly, when I was, because they did an amazing job with the marketing and the trailers, because the first Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, I was like, oh, okay, great. I didn't remember the subtle differences that you saw, but I'm like, oh, great, it's his mentor. He even says I'm going to teach you, I'm going to train you. And 5 minutes later, spoiler, he's dead. Peter Parker is dead, and Stan Lee, I think that was one of his last cameos.
It was great.
That or Avengers. Even his cameo that, it wasn't just haha, jokey. I mean, there was one punchline in the background, but when Miles hands him the children's Halloween costume, he goes, what if it doesn't fit? And Stan Lee goes, he started out by saying we were close or we were friends or something like that. I knew him. And he goes, don't worry, it always fits. That is just so I don't know, deep to me, because not only is it's Stan Lee saying that, but it's reassuring in every one of us who wants to be that hero, that eventually the suit might not fit at first, but you'll grow into it, so it just pulls on pulls the hearts.
That was such great lines. And I mean, the being animated lets them go just free for all in terms of what Spider-Man can act and move like. I mean, it makes them more free to do it. I mean, you can do this in a movie now, live action, but it's all CG and it doesn't mesh right. But when you're doing CG just a whole movie in the art style, it works. And just being able to,
you don't question it. Yeah,
just being able to move the way he did, and even like all of the Spider-Man, all of them, including the Diva Bot. I don't know what her name was. That one's the only one. Penny Parker. I just, that was so awesome to see them in like their own style of combat and such. And even like I said, the noir Spider-Man was entertaining. It was really cool to see that. And so I thought it was fantastic, and recommend it to anybody that wants to watch a Marvel movie that
Yeah, it's like for me also it upped the game as far as animation goes. Like you get a lot of animated films and they're all doing similar things. Like the Minions and that company that whatever they make has that style, whatever, right? And then you have Pixar style. It's like Pixar changes it up a little bit here and there, but it's kind of just like generic. Like, okay, this is what computer animation looks
like. They all
like.
look the same now.
But this is what you can do with this movie like changed
art direction and art style.
It was amazing that they thought outside the box and was like, we're not just gonna do some CGI film here. We're gonna basically create a whole new way of creating animated films. And then put it in this movie, and that to me was just like that blew my mind. Also, it's like wow.
It was fantastic.
That's why what I was saying actually with Lego Movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a similar style. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that really that absolutely that recent bias I guess is a little bit there, but at the same time I can't remember feeling more.
I can't remember feeling more disappointed when you realize that because they were guarded about what this was going to do in the box office, they weren't sure how obviously big it was going to be. They didn't greenlight that sequel immediately, so it's like we're waiting a while for this sequel. It's happening, but it's like this is the first time I've heard it. I'm like, damn, I can't wait for this. It's
These animated movies take some time though.
They do. That's why you have to kind of greenlight them before it even comes out, and they didn't do that. So it was like. When's
the schedule? Like 2022 or
22? Yeah, it's not next year, isn't it? It's 2022, I think.
At least,
yeah. So, but yeah. All right, Mike, your number one movie of 2010 to 2019.
My number one is the epilogue to what I just described, and that would be Logan.
That's the epilogue. Yes, and that deserves that. Yes. Should have been. I mean, that was close to making my list. In fact, in one of the early versions of my list, it was in the top, up in the upper 9s and 10s area. But go on.
Well, for me, like obviously, Wolverine is my second favorite comic book character, and he was, again, in my mind, sort of like the start of the modern superhero era with the first X-Men movie. And we got to see the same actor. I like that consistency through like almost 20 years. And then we have the ending here, like an ending. It's hard to write an ending. And we saw them not really do anything well recently with endings before. But we get this adaptation pretty much of the Old Man Logan storyline, which I read in the comics first. And honestly, I think the movie does it a little better.
I thought this was a great movie. So I don't know what the comic book is, but I thought it was a very good story for a X-Men movie.
You get an ending for Xavier too, and it's all bittersweet. You get him you explore what like dementia for like the most powerful telepath would mean, and how it could like cause extreme problems. You get that R-rated X-Men Wolverine movie finally. You see him sort of unleashed in a way that you haven't before. You get and it's semi post-apocalyptic world, not really, but it's a world where mutants don't exist anymore. You're not sure why. Wolverine's dying. He's not sure why. And then you got this whole father figure thing, and you get this future, this potential hope for future, this father-daughter dynamic with his clone, obviously. And it's just an interesting story. It touches on a thing. It's bittersweet, and it's a lot of stuff people were looking for from, I think, the franchise for a long time. And obviously it got some mainstream recognition, too, as just being like a high-quality like movie, too. It's very emotional. And to me, some people didn't like the fact that one of the villains was just like another him. But basically, like, when you look at the character of Wolverine, like, it's the perfect sort of like villain for him, just because he hates himself. Like, he's a self-hating character who hates like the more animalistic or violent side of him, like, or his past even he hates. And that was just a visual representation of it. And then for the first time, really, because like Wolverine has a little bit of problem even in the movies and in the comics where he just like gets his ass kicked all the time because he can take it. And so he ends up looking like pretty weak. He's one of those like measuring sticks too sometimes. But when they made him like the villain version of him, you can see just how scary that could be, where like this character, like you can't kill him and he'll just keep coming. So I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. So in a way, with the villain, you made everything about the hero seem more like profound, and then you end it and you write an ending to the character, which I'm still a little torn about, like killing off this character, but I guess you kind of had to with the way it went. And it was just it hit all the right notes. It was emotional. It was dark. It was action-packed. It was thought-provoking. And for me, that was probably, definitely the best movie I saw this year for me.
This decade.
Sure. But
could be this year, too.
I got a higher, like, appreciation for this movie after finding out the news that this is what spawned, like, Patrick Stewart to revisit Picard. And being this week it's amazing you put this out here, because I'm like, Picard's starting 2 days. So I'm a big Star Trek kick, and I'm psyched to have him back. And because of this role, he wanted to revisit some older roles, and because he really enjoyed what he did with this. I liked seeing that aspect of this character. Like, you're right, like an older, like what happens when the oldest, like the most powerful character like in the universe gets like old, like that has those mental powers that gets like the old person like dementia or it just, you have that problem. It's just like unbelievable. So I thought that was that whole thing, and the cool scene. And I liked the Logan father-daughter thing. I mean,
the girl was fantastic in this.
Yeah, she was great too. Yeah.
But yeah, it was on one of my early drafts as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, mine was 8 through 9, 10. I can't remember where it was exactly, but it was up there. Tony, your number one movie of the decade.
My number one is going to be Inception, and it's just because I thought about it, and I have to reward originality, because this is one of the few that's completely original. It's not based on IP, not based on anything that has some source material that people can really pull from. It's one of the few. Anything else has like source material, but this one, it made me think, like just like how Corey described. I mean, I sat in, like, my mouth was dropped. I want to say half the time this movie was going on, between like the premise, the story. It's kind of like that John Wick thing where they give you this information about the world building, and it's like, okay, it takes place in a modern setting, but there's some differences, and it's like there's architects and engineers and dream sequences, and it's like, wait, what? Like, and like you're slowly pulling away the layers of this onion to get deeper and deeper into this thing. And then the ensemble cast, just a great job in their respective roles, from obviously Leonardo DiCaprio to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and
I forgot
Cillian Murphy.
I forgot she was in this movie with them. I forgot Ellen Page was in this movie.
They all do fantastic jobs.
Cool.
Yeah, but for me, for me, like, it's
Ken. What's his name? Ken
Watanabe.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I mean, all the players in this are just awesome. I don't think there's a bad actor in this movie.
No. The music, man.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's this perfect culmination of like cinematography, which I mean, I classify this as a sci-fi film myself. It's not like futuristic sci-fi, but like it's about exploring dreams, which is like, we've explored space, we explored oceans, explored like dinosaurs coming back, but like dreams, that's one of the few unknowns still as to like the human psyche. Like, why do we dream? Why do we dream that that's going to go on forever? So to me, it's like fascinating, because I personally am fascinated by dreams, and then just to take this original script where it's like, hey, what if you could hack other people's dreams and steal information? Like, that's cool. And it's like, all right, now we want you to insert yourself into somebody's dream and plant an idea in their head to get them to alter their actual real life decisions. Like what? Like, that's crazy. That's insane. And they're like, not a dream, but a dream within the dream. And it's like, hold up, player. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is hold on, like let me follow it. And I mean, the first time, I'm not gonna say I followed it 100%, but it was enough to be like, okay, I'm with you here, and then they keep saying like, oh, we got to jump to the next one, and then we got to kick back and like figure out the ways. And it's just really fascinating, the sound effects. I mean, that pretty much popularized that whole like epic trailer music now, where it's like it's like in every trailer now. So just fantastic, and really it was one of my favorite theatrical experiences, because just hearing that in the Dolby surround sound just like made it so epic and so awesome. And it has that, like Jim was saying, like that ending where it just leaves it up to interpretation. Yep, and just
that. Again, this might have made my list if I actually saw it in the theater first. I saw it at home, and I don't know. I really think that like it was okay to me. It was just like, all right, that was a movie. Like it didn't hit me for whatever reason, but I think that might have been part of it.
The sequence when like Cillian Murphy's character is like finally like, all right, like going into, because they're basically convincing him to go into that room of his own mind with his dad, was it, or something like?
Yeah.
And just the music that's counting on you, and he's like in there, and he's like the crying, he's like, oh my god, that sequence was ridiculous.
Yeah. There's that, and then
so much weight to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's emotional weight to it, and just poignant because like it's a heist movie. I love heist.
It's still a heist movie, which is good.
It's a dream.
It has all the montages and everything.
It's all the montages. Yeah. But I mean, even it has one of my favorite visually exciting sequences with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's fighting that one crony, where like because whoever was dreaming that sequence was like being thrown around, I think in the van, like tumbling.
Yeah. Like the case was going around.
Yeah.
And so they were going around.
They're in a hotel like hallway, and like they're fighting, and then it slowly starts turning, twisting. So like you're running on the ceiling walls. Right, exactly. And it's just so awesome. And this to me is like one of the things that really stuck out. Like that's one of the few movies I actually went and like watched every extra on the Blu-ray and stuff like that. And they're like, blew my mind when they're like, this wasn't special effects. We actually built, and they show it like these giant cylinders with like the sets, and they're just manually cranking them, and the actors had to learn like the fight sequences while the thing is going on. I'm just like, holy
that's awesome.
shit.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's incredible.
Exactly. Like it's practical.
I think they were saying like when this came out, like X-Men had to do a right turn, because like we were going to plan something like this, and we're not going to do it as well, so we're not going to do it now.
Something like that. But I mean, it's in a way I'm sad that like we never had a follow-up, but in the same vein, like
it didn't need it.
It didn't need it, right? It didn't need it, but it's just one of the things, kind of like John Wick, where like they just plant this awesome interpretation of like a world, like it's a known thing. Like there's multiple people that do this stuff, and it's just like, damn, like just a bunch of dream hackers and dream cops and all that stuff. But
this to me is like what the modern day like Matrix like was at the time.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just,
that's a good
it
point.
Changes the game. It changes the game.
That's a good comparison right there. Yeah. So awesome. Wow. So that's our of the decades, guys. We're gonna run down our lists individually here. Should I go all the way through mine? I guess go all the way 10 through 1. 10 through 1 for me. Spider-Man: Homecoming, Deadpool, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, The Avengers, The Raid, John Wick, Inception, Force Awakens, Winter Soldier, and Into the Spider-Verse. Mike?
I gotta pull it up again.
I can run it down for you, but I have them all written down for us if you want to. But
so my whole 10 we're doing.
Yep.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Disaster Artist, Spider-Verse, Winter Soldier, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Civil War, Force Awakens, Lego Movie, Days of Future Past, and Logan.
All right, Tony.
Starting from 10, Toy Story 3, John Wick, Social Network, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, The Raid Redemption, Your Name, Avengers Endgame / Infinity War, Captain America: Winter Soldier, and Inception.
And Corey.
Mine is The Avengers / Endgame, Inception, Deadpool, The Raid, Winter Soldier, Blade Runner 2049, John Wick, Your Name, Arrival, and Into the Spider-Verse. My number one.
The Spider-Verse made all of our lists. So I think it's the only one. Winter Soldier made all of our lists as well. Yep.
Yeah, Winter Soldier.
So, yeah, that's... Oh, and no, Homecoming didn't? No, it didn't. No, Winter Soldier.
It's not on my list.
Winter Soldier and Spider-Verse. Wow. So that's our of the decade, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can write us, podcast at allyoucangeek.net. Follow us on Twitter, allyoucangeek. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just discussed this before. So many topics coming up for you guys. Most anticipated on the docket. Bold predictions coming up for you guys. We've got a Fallen Order spoiler cast on the docket as well coming soon. So just stay tuned for all of that stuff. Gamecast of the decade also coming up here. If you haven't heard that first, whatever. Tune in then. See you guys. Whew.
To another 10.
Excelsior.
Here's the next 10, yeah.
Excelsior, yeah.